Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to the first Partnership Grand Strand Townhall Meeting. The full board of Partnership Grand Strand has been working with the Chamber staff since about this time last year to start our new foundation, Partnership Grand Strand, which is affectionately known around here as PGS. We hope we're getting to be known as PGS all around town. Last year, the board assisted in getting the staff in place and refining our strategic plan and organizing the foundation from the ground up. As you know, in 2019, when we were facing COVID and a myriad of other local challenges, all of us in this room came together and we raised more than $3 million in a super focused effort to attack four major pillars that were facing our business community. We posited those pillars to the community as increase prosperity, locate and keep talent, obtain and find funding for badly needed infrastructure, and create a positive place downtown. As most of you here are investors in PGS, and PGS's reason for bringing you here today is to bring you up to date on what this wonderful staff has been doing for the last 6 months. If you've not already met this top-notch staff, you're going to have plenty of time in the next few minutes to do that, and they are truly extraordinary. We're here really to give you that update and to get your guidance on where we go from here. Keep in mind that if any of you are interested in becoming more involved, we have a place for you to become more involved. And if you're interested in any one of the pillars, we have a very special place to get you or your company more involved in this effort. So without stealing any of the thunder for why there's a red carpet that you walked across coming into this room, I would like to welcome you again and introduce to you our director, Peggy Masterson, and ask you to give her a real big hand for all the work.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And thank you all for being here today. This is kind of a milestone, for Partnership Grand Strand as we officially approach our 6 months of actually working hard and diligently on this project. So today is really about kind of bringing you up to speed, and we do encourage that you feel free to ask any questions, stop us at any time. This is your meeting. So all we really want to do is give you some things to think about, react to, and certainly participate if you can. Just a couple housekeeping things as we get started. In front of you, underneath the agenda, I believe, you should find a strategic document. This is just a reference tool for you that summarizes our strategic plan. This has been a big piece of what we worked on in the first few weeks, actually, that we were all on the job. So as we're talking through our presentation, you should see direct linkage to the strategic plan within each one of the pillars as we talk about it. In addition to that, you should have some blank cards also at your spot right now. At the end of the session, as you'll see in the agenda, we do have an opportunity for a panel discussion. So all of us will be available, certainly all of our board members. So if you have any questions, you can write them down. Mary Ann will pick them up before the panel discussion, but you also can feel free to ask at any time. That's just a way to try to, if you think of something while we're talking, just jot it down and put it on those cards. I think that's it. So the other thing that I would share with you is that, as you can see, we have kind of picked a little bit of a movie theme or a documentary for this little meeting. And this is intended to be kind of a way to capture the story of the Grand Strand. And the film idea that we have is really, I'll take the blame or the credit for it, but basically when I think about the work we're doing in Partnership Grand Strand, I think about how we, meaning all of you, not just the staff, we are writing the next chapter. We are writing the story of the Grand Strand, and we're doing it together. And each of us in our own lifetimes write our own story. This is a way that we thought we would capture kind of what's happened over time across the Grand Strand, and share with you as we talk about PGS where we're going and how positive and energized we feel about what the next chapter is going to look like. So we're calling what you'll see in a minute, which is kind of a historical little slideshow that we've put together. We're calling that episode 1. And when we start talking about PGS, that will move us into episode 2. And then we'll just continue to go from there. And we have you with a red carpet and so forth, little film on your table, but essentially what we want to convey to you is you are the VIPs in this room. We would not be standing here, we would not be able to work on these initiatives if it wasn't for each of you. So I want to just essentially say and formally say thank you for each of your investments. And as Clay put it, this is a working organization, meaning every individual that's contributing is encouraged to get involved. We have a place for you. We want to hear your ideas. We love to hear your suggestions. And many of you are subject matter experts in the areas in which you work. So if you're interested, let us know, and we are certain we can find a spot for you. So thank you for that. So with that, I'm going to turn it to episode 1. Give you an opportunity to really kind of skim through what the history, if you will, of the Grand Strand has looked like, and then we'll step into talking about where we're going from here. as that was ticking through there, I mean, that's 4 minutes to take us a century and a half, right? I mean, there's been an awful lot of history in this area, and I don't think any of us kind of remember when an oceanfront lot cost $25,000. And we've come a long way from being a population of 5,000 people when Myrtle Beach was first founded. So it puts things in perspective, I think, and we'll talk more about that as we move forward into kind of where we're going next. So let's go there. So the age-old philosophy is, we really can't accurately determine where we're going if we don't take time to really understand where we've been, and that is a clear pathway to success. And I took that video and just kind of mapped out for us in a visual sense kind of what we've been up against over these years. I think, we have to kind of step back and give ourselves a lot of credit, because unlike other communities, we have had a lot more headwinds and a lot more natural disasters and things that have happened to us that have been essentially out of our control, that could have had a more significant impact if we weren't the survivors that we are. So looks a little bit like an EKG, but as we move forward into 23 and beyond, we, God willing, expect that it's going to continue to move in that upward direction, and hopefully we won't have anything that's out of our control that we have to address. So as we're looking at PGS, I think this little quote from Rockefeller really says it all. There isn't really any other quality so essential to success is this quality of perseverance. And if there's anything that can be said about the Myrtle Beach and Grand Strand area, it is that we can persevere. And now is no different than what has happened to this community over the last century or so. So welcome to episode 2 in the Grand Strand story. And this story, as I mentioned when we opened, is really it's created and written by each of you. So Partnership Grand Strand, and you'll see this on your strategic document, is really unique from the standpoint that there aren't a whole lot of nonprofit organizations, at least in my experience, that have been created by the community for the community. And as Clay put it in his opening, to have all of you step up and actually make a commitment to the 4 pillars that we are focused on is significant. To have a business community that basically says, we need to really put some sizable time, effort, and energy against these things if we're going to build a better tomorrow, if our story is going to look better in the future. So we thank you for that. So a little bit about us. As many of you know, this started as an idea in 2020. A group of individuals, many of you in this room, basically kind of said, you know what, I think there's some things here we really need to focus on, and we don't have perhaps enough manpower or brain power or whatever it is to really kind of dig in and focus at the level that we need to be able to move it forward. So out of that idea, we commissioned the Chamber did under Karen's leadership and some other strategic partners, commissioned a third party to do some research. So everything that PGS is doing is built on data. It is a robust set of information that is guiding our steps and every decision that we make. And in 21 was when we first were formed as a 501c3. 22 was spent fundraising. And I can't be more grateful coming into this role, having a safe startup with $3 million to kind of begin planning with. Again, very rare, very unusual that I would have, or anyone would have, the luxury of coming in with that kind of funding already in place. So 2023 is really where we are today in terms of sharing what we've been up to. Myself and BJ, who you'll meet in a few minutes, who's our workforce and talent manager, we landed on the scene in January. And in March, we were fortunate enough to have James come on board. James Toy is our policy and infrastructure lead. And then as recently as July, just 10 days, not even 10 days ago, we had Mark join our team, Mark Schauber. So if you have not met them, you'll hear from them today, but please make an effort to try to connect with them and get to understand and know a little bit about them. So here's the team. You can see them up front, and Marianne Joy has been our anchor. Many of you have probably interacted with her over time. She was involved with PGS long before we ever knew how to spell it or what it was, so we appreciate that. And Marianne is a key part of the team because she is the foundation for us to rely on. She's got a lot of the background information and access to data and insight and such. But what I would tell you about this team is it took us a bit to build the team, but what we have are individuals that are not only really good at what they do, but they're also very passionate about the area of expertise that they're focused on. And I've led a lot of teams over time, and you can have really good people, but you can't teach them how to really care and to be passionate about what they're doing. And I think you'll see that come through in each of their presentations. So our overall objective, accelerate economic prosperity and enhance the quality of life across the Grand Strand. No surprises there. Our guiding principles, however, I think are important to know because we are a nonprofit organization that is really focused on building not only partnerships, but deep strategic long-term relationships. This is not a, hey, quick, let's sponsor something and move on. This is about building a partnership that goes that's very deep and that will last an awful long time. Access and opportunity, one of the things that we've discovered and the data has shown us is that there's a real opportunity in this marketplace to make sure that everyone, no matter your socioeconomic background, no matter your education level, whatever it is, that they have knowledge and access to opportunities in this area. And that plays a big part as it relates to not only our small business pillar, but also to our talent and workforce. Excuse me. And we're also really focused on making sure that everything we do is transparent for you and that it is also measurable. So the strategic document that you see there is our guide, but within each one of the pillars, those of you that are on the board or in the subcommittees know we have a dashboard for each activity that we're doing, and we are measuring against that. So that is something that is always available to you as investors to take a look at. So measuring is important. How we do that, the steps that we take, is education and inform. And by that I mean not only others, but to educate ourselves. All of us would tell you that we have learned a ton in 6 months, and there is a lot more to learn. So we want to build our minds so that we can build a better strategy, and then we can look for more strategic partnerships along the way. Out of that learning, we want to draw some meaningful conclusions, and that in turn will direct our next steps. Convene is a big piece of this. If there's a single thing that I think Partnership Grand Strand needs to be best at, it's this notion of bringing the right people together against the right initiative and pulling them into a situation where everybody's going to roll their sleeves up and fix whatever it is we're working on. This work is not easy. It isn't something that's going to happen overnight, and it does require convening the experts together. And then advocate is, I put it up there, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's important that you understand that the things that we're going to be advocating for are things that our board, the chamber, yourselves, investors, have already identified that you want us to advocate for. And a lot of our advocation is going to be tied to education because, people don't advocate for things they don't understand. So that's one of the key things that we are trying to deliver. So here's where we've been in the last 6 months. Just to give you a top-line summary, we do have an amazing board, by the way. And again, all of the board members are highly involved and engaged, which we so appreciate. Under the board of directors, we do have a group of subcommittees that are focused on each one of the pillars. Those subcommittees are members of the board that are providing strategic direction and coaching to our team leads in each one of the pillar areas. And then in some areas, and eventually we think in all areas, we want to have an advisory council. We currently have one for policy. We're talking about building one for workforce and building one for small business. But these are subject matter experts that are going to be coming, some of you I see in the room, that are coming together and giving us essentially their expertise, their insight as to what's happening in that particular segment of the work that we're doing. And they are really valuable to us in terms of being able to identify clear next steps. We've built the strategic plan. We've talked about that. I don't know why that is there, but we'll just work around it. We have key business indicators, as I talked about, and then we have this dashboard. So those things are all part of what we've talked about, and this is just a recap of where we've been in 6 months. So to date, we've struck 18 strategic alliances, 12 innovative programs have been developed from the ground up, but again, in high collaboration with other people. 51 new relationships, 9 strategic sponsorships, and you'll hear about these as the guys talk about their individual pillars. We are writing a newsletter every other month. If you're not getting the newsletter, please let Mary Ann know, and there's also some copies in the back because that is one of our primary means of communication. And we also have a blog that James has been writing, and we expect to expand to the other pillars as well. And the last one is pillar-specific studies. So I can't see studies, but we're also working particularly in the policy area, to invest in some additional data dives, if you will, on key initiatives that we know we need more research on. And James will talk to you more about that and what specifically that means. So here's our 4 pillars: workforce, transportation, small and emerging business, and then as you all know, we have a strategic relationship with the Myrtle Beach Downtown Alliance. And we'll talk more about that as we move through the pillars. Does anybody have any questions so far? Any thoughts, reactions? Feeling like maybe we're getting kind of things organized and together, hopefully. If you see opportunities, we're wide open to feedback, so please let us know. So I also have an operating principle, a guiding principle among our team, is that we never steal thunder from one another. So I am going to be quiet, and I am going to turn over the presentation to each of our pillar leads, beginning with BJ Beaver. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about workforce and talent and give you an update on the things that he's been doing within his focused pillar. And as I introduce BJ, I want to share with you that BJ is a Horry County native. He's a proud graduate of Coastal Carolina. Whoop, whoop, right? Glad. And BJ brings a wealth of knowledge and experience into this role because, number one, he's lived in this area for so long, but he's also worked in higher education as well as worked in talent development while he's been in higher education. So he has a lot of connections. He's been active in a lot of community-facing organizations, and we could not be more thrilled to have BJ on our team. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. BJ.
You know, workforce has been a hot topic for everyone in every community, every state. You know, it's not going away. It's a major concern across the U.S. So I'm very thankful to be here to work on this initiative in our market because we know without having a qualified workforce, you know, it's hard to move forward in the things we want to advance on. So me being in higher education, it wouldn't feel right if I didn't educate you guys a little bit on where we are with our current workforce and our labor numbers. I'm not going to bore you guys, but just give you the highlights. So right now, our labor force participation has increased about 7,500 people. So that's a highlight. You know, compared to May 2022, we're moving up, and you know, the notion is that we have this retirement community and that folks aren't always engaged in the workforce, but we're actually seeing an increase. The other side of that is that we're seeing a decrease in unemployment. So unemployment is actually down 0.3%. So right now we're in that 3% range, which is fairly good for us. COVID taught us that we have to be resilient, we have to get people back into the workforce, and all the effort for all the different organizations in our community, you're starting to see some positive trends with that. So when you talk about why am I not finding workers in my job, what's hurting, why can't I place people, we have to talk about labor participation rate. So what that really is the amount of folks who are qualified to work in the workforce, of those who are between 16 and 65, they're considered to be in the workforce, and how many of them are actually engaged in the workforce. So that's your labor participation rate. And you can see, even before COVID, we started to trend down in Horry County, right? So I'm assuming that's why I'm here, to try to help fix that issue. So why is that happening? What is contributing to why we're not finding qualified workers in our community? Just a couple of key factors that we uncovered pretty quickly. Obviously, the aging community, the boomers, folks retiring, leaving the workforce, that plays a role that we're all fairly aware of, but also the cost of dependent care. In the United States, the average is between $5,000 and $17,000 for parents to find dependent care or child care per child. So folks are weighing the difference of, should I be in the workforce or should I stay home and take care of my kids? So that's something that we're also looking at in one of our initiatives for workforce. And then alternative income. So government programs that may make it easier for folks to be able to stay at home and not have to engage in the workforce, or even gig employment. So the Ubers, the Lyfts, the side hustles, all those things play a role as to why we may not be seeing employees in the workforce right now. So where do we want to grow? So before COVID, Horry County was probably around this 50 to 53 percentile range with labor force participation. But today you can see we're down in the 50 percentile range. So again, we have work to do. We want to at least get back to where we were pre-COVID. So our goal, or my personal goal, is to work with all of our partners to make sure that we're slowly but steadily getting back into that at least mid-range. And then obviously we want to be number one like Charleston County. We'll let them know about that when we get there, when we take them over. How can we solve the workforce crisis? You know, there's really no magic key to solve this crisis, but we all have to work together. But the one thing I can tell you, it's very important that we start to cultivate the talent in our backyard. We have 3 strong educational institutions in our community right now that are producing top talent that others have noticed outside of our community and are even poaching those students out of our community. So the talent is here, but it's how can we get our businesses involved to create a steady talent pipeline. So as you know, one of our biggest goals in our strategic plan is to retain that talent pipeline and retain talent in our region. So far in the quick 6 months that we've been here is that we've started great relationships with CCU, Horry County Schools, and Horry Georgetown Tech. And the one thing I can tell you is that those 3 institutions welcome us as businesses into their schools. So we just need to create advantages for us to be able to engage with those students and start to develop those talent pipelines. So one thing we have to learn is, why is talent leaving, right? And this slide addresses that. We can't retain talent without knowing why they're leaving our community. So it's all about perception, and I think we all have the opportunity to change that perception. Here's what students from CCU, as well as the Grand Strand Young Professionals, taught us in focus groups that we did with both of those groups. So the perception is, I don't want to be involved with the tourism industry. The level of crime in our community, it is a retirement community, obviously, so there may not be enough for young people. Affordable housing and salary expectations. Now, I will say, of those, obviously, these are perceptions. The biggest concerns that we have and that we're seeing in other markets is the affordable housing, right? If you can afford to live in your community, then you may want to seek a higher salary to go elsewhere in another community. So one of the things that our subcommittee is looking into is, how can we present what the truth really is? There are opportunities to find affordable housing in our community. It's tough, right? You may have to be outside of Conway, you may have to be out in another community, but there are those opportunities. So there's a chance for us to actually start to change this perception, to educate young folks on knowing what the great opportunities are in the Grand Strand. So that's really what our focus is. Some of these things we can't change, right? We're not police officers, we're not gonna lower the crime, but we can change the perception of there are areas that are safe and there are times that you can enjoy yourself and be a part of our community. So what can we do? Realistically, the most important part of this when you're talking about retaining talent and you're talking about retaining young talent is consistent interaction, right? We all know that, kids nowadays, they communicate differently. The social media, Facebook has actually faded out now. TikTok, Instagram, those mediums are different now. They're using different mediums. So we have to consistently be in their face. If you attend a job fair once a year at Horry County Schools, that's not enough. We have to be a presence. We have to let them know that we're involved. A great example, Ori Georgetown Tech has advanced manufacturing program, and they actually had a student get recruited from Georgia Pacific because they come down all the time and they're involved in the classroom, and they offered that student a $30,000 sign-on bonus, right? I don't think anyone may not be in that position to do that in Horry County. Businesses may not be in that spot. However, if we start developing relationships with those students and we say, hey, stay home, your family's here, we start giving them reasons and opportunities and let them know that there is growth potential, that's how we're going to do that through consistent interaction with our students. Also promote mid-level professional opportunities. So they need to know what's out there for them. We have to always communicate that with them. And again, sometimes posting it on Indeed, they may not look at that. So we need to start thinking about how we can promote those opportunities to the students in the way that they'll see them. And so really excited about Horry County Schools. In my experience in higher education, they were a little bit of a tough nut to crack to get involved with. But Dr. Maxey's been very gracious and allowed us in, and we've done a couple of different activities with them since we started in January. So I want to let everyone know that Horry County Schools has a CTE, or Career Technology Education Program. You may know this already, but if you don't, there are 16 career clusters that Horry County Schools is already focusing on to develop talent. Anything from healthcare to manufacturing to trades, they're all getting involved already in that. So this is already happening. Again, we just need to make sure we're engaging with them. We did the Horry County Schools Summer Job Fair, which links back to our strategic plan of making sure that high school students can find employment. So we had about 120 students participate in the Horry County Schools Job Fair all over the county. We did it at Myrtle Beach High School, and my initial assumption is we're going to get, Myrtle Beach High School, Socastee, St. James, but we had kids come from Green Sea Floyd's, we had kids come from Loris, Aner. So that tells me that kids are really excited about opportunities that are down here at the beach. So we need to make sure that we're promoting this. One thing that we may tweak next year is that include more diversity in the type of employers that we have here. So we may have some of the trades involved, just give them different opportunities while they are looking for summer employment, but there may be some after-school opportunities that they can look into as well. And then, I don't know if you guys have interviewed anyone recently, but one of the main things employers have always told me is, BJ, you have great students, but they don't know how to interview. They don't know how to shake my hand. They don't make eye contact. So we want to address that as well. We call that soft skills, or they're calling it essential skills now. But a part of this is the Youth Employability Skills Program. So what we did was a 4-day workshop where we actually had students come in and we worked on those soft skills. So we gave them interview training. We gave them how to show up on time. They learned how to balance a checkbook. All those things, we had great partners involved to help them learn those skills. We're looking to expand that in the future, but ultimately, once those students completed that program, they got a guaranteed job interview for summer employment, right? So we have to, again, continue to be engaged with the students and let them know what they don't know. So it's really important that if you ever do want to participate in something like this, if you have a calling to work with young students and want to help them learn how to be successful in the business world, please let me know, because we can loop you in on some of these activities. And so here's our partners. We've been very busy. We've worked with a lot. This is just the key ones. I talked about, some of the other agencies that are out in the community now who are working on initiatives like this. So these are just the folks that we've worked with so far and continue to build strong relationships with in the future. And of course, we got Coastal Rise up there. I'd be biased if I didn't say that I wouldn't support Coastal in any way I could. So.
Go Teal.
Go Teal. If I had a teal shirt, I'd wear it. But right now, I want to thank you guys, and I want to introduce our Public Policy Manager, Mr. James Toy. James comes to us from the Sunshine State of Florida, where he graduated from Florida Southern University and has a background in public policy. He's done several internships with organizations like Publix and also the White House. So James, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm more of a podium guy, so I'm going to switch up the format here for a second.
The policy man needs a podium.
That's right, a little more official. So again, my name is James Toy. I'm the Public Policy Manager for Partnership Grand Strand. In my role, I advocate for improving the quality of life here in Horry County. That includes for both our residents and our visitors. We want to try to ensure that Horry County and the Grand Strand is a great place to work, live, and visit. In my role specifically, I focus on infrastructure policy. And I think that as we start this presentation, it's important that we work to define some terms. So infrastructure is kind of a catch-all term. It can be everything from your local roadways to bike paths to much larger projects, natural gas pipelines, for example. But I want to really focus on the three things that Partnership Grand Strand has been putting all of our attention towards. So the first of those is the building of new roads and bridges within the Horry County area. The second is the maintenance of our existing infrastructure, making sure that our roads are up to quality and up to par for both our residents and visitors. And then third is, and this might surprise you, increasing accessibility to electric vehicle charging infrastructure, which is our charging stations. We're seeing a surprising growing level of interest amongst both our residents and visitors in having access to EV charging. And as you might have seen downstairs, we now have an EV charger here in our parking lot. So if you have an EV vehicle, please swing by, come and see us and plug in. So another thing I think is important to define is, well, when we talk about advocacy, what in the world are we talking about? So thanks to shows like House of Cards and Parks and Rec, there are some kind of distorted views as far as what advocacy entails. It might conjure up images of these dark, smoke-filled rooms where we're hanging out with elected officials and shooting the breeze, but it looks nothing like that in reality. Advocacy is a term that can apply to several different strategies. So everything from your traditional lobbying, public campaigning, to community organizing, it's a catch-all. But what does that look like for Partnership Grand Strand? Well, again, here are three things we've identified as far as how we're defining our advocacy efforts. The first of those is building relationships with decision makers and key stakeholders. So that includes industry partners, elected officials here at local level, the state, and the federal level. And I have to emphasize that of all of our advocacy strategies, this is by far and away the most important. Our relationships with our stakeholders and our decision makers is what gets us a seat at the table, and it's what allows us to push forward our policy priorities. The second of those is conducting in-depth research on infrastructure and regional issues, making sure that we're keeping both all of you, all of our investors, as well as the general public up to date on what's going on in the policy world. And we'll get to that in a second. And finally, again, just educating our investors and the public on anything related to infrastructure as well as any other issues. I just want to throw it out there. If there's ever a policy issue that you want us to look into, please just reach out. We're always here. Call, email. So before I get to the next slide, I do want to ask, how many of you are a Clemson fan?
Oh, just one.
Okay. Okay, second question. How many of you are Gamecocks fans? This is going to be heartbreaking for several of you. So we are currently working with Clemson University to conduct a hurricane evacuation analysis analyzing the impacts of Interstate 73 and the Southern Evacuation Lifeline on hurricane clearance times in the event of a natural disaster. So with Horry County growing the way that it is, by 2035, we are expected to nearly double our population. And as you can already see on our local roadways, I think it's safe to say it's a little crowded around here. So we thought this was the perfect time to see how these two major regional infrastructure projects would impact getting people out of Horry County in the event of a hurricane. And I do want to emphasize, we did not just give this study to Clemson because they're a school in South Carolina. This went through a pretty rigorous search process. We spoke to schools as far out as Texas, Texas A&M, the University of Florida, all the way out to California with Berkeley, trying to see who we thought could deliver the best product, and Clemson University just happened to have the best staff to do it. So some of the things that this study is going to be analyzing includes the seasonal and permanent population of the area, existing and projected roadway conditions, and behavioral trends based on previous evacuations. And what that means is, how have people reacted to hurricanes in the past? How many people have stayed in place? How many people have decided to go up north and leave the area? That is a major facet of this study. So the public policy blog and infographics. So as you can imagine, public policy is complex. You could spend your entire lifetime focusing on a single policy area and still not understand it fully. So what we have done is taken some of these complex policies and condensed it down into easy to understand format through the blogs. We currently have 5 blogs. They cover everything from how does I-73 impact inland Port Dillon? How does an interstate connector benefit the Myrtle Beach area? What might that look like once fully constructed? As well as a comparison of the capital projects tax and the transportation tax, and the capital projects tax is also known here as the RIDE program or a penny for roads. Some of those are also accompanied by infographics. I've been diving into design recently, which who would ever thought? And that's really just to kind of, again, break down some of that information and present it in a more visually appealing way. So this is an example of one of our infographics. As you can see, this is the benefits of I-73 to the Grand Strand. We talk about things such as reduced travel time, job creation, increasing our visitor numbers, as well as tax revenue. So we talked about some of the tangible projects, but I want to kind of bring it back. You might remember when we were talking about advocacy, I stressed the importance of relationship building, excuse me. So this is more of the relational aspect of our advocacy strategy. One of the major initiatives I've been doing since I first started here is reaching out to other chambers. Now, the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce does a phenomenal job of maintaining relationships here throughout the Grand Strand. But I wanted to see what would it look like if we went outside of that, if we went to the greater PD to learn about their issues and communicate what we're working on and kind of see where we can build consensus on certain policy areas. So for example, we have done work here in our backyard with Destination North Myrtle Beach, the Loris Chamber of Commerce, but we've gone as far out as Darlington, we've gone up to Wilmington, the Marion Chamber, Florence, and we still have more on the way. And these relationships are incredibly important to build. We found common ground on several different infrastructure priorities, and we're going to continue to work on that. And then kind of in that same vein is general stakeholder engagement. So different industries looking at how they might be interested in infrastructure policy, see where we might have some common ground. So that includes things such as the Myrtle Beach Regional Economic Development Group, Dominion Energy, the South Carolina Retail Association, and many more. And we are continuing to have these meetings with different industries and kind of see where we can build consensus and gain support for different policy here in the Grand Strand. And then finally, I want to touch on coalitions and committees. So these are different groups that we have cobbled together. I can't take credit for cobbling the first one together. That is the National Corridor Association. This is a 6-state coalition of folks such as myself in the policy space, elected officials, and we work on advocating for this significant piece of infrastructure. So this includes states such as South Carolina here, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, and Michigan. And together we meet about once a quarter. We talk about different policy strategies. We get updates on what's happening in their states. And we really just try to come around this together and take a holistic 6-state approach to advocating for, again, this critical piece of infrastructure. And then finally is the Transportation Advisory Committee. Peggy talked earlier about how we're trying to put together these expert groups to inform and guide our strategic direction as an organization. And I'm happy to say that we've been meeting regularly. We've cobbled together 4 individuals. Actually, one of them is in this room right now, Mr. Wayne Gray. And they've dedicated their time and their knowledge on policy to help, again, guide our strategic direction and make sure we're up to date on what's happening in the policy world. Now, I could sit here and talk about policy and advocacy all day, but you're probably tired of hearing from me. So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Partnership Grand Strand newest member, Mr. Mark Schaber. Mark, he was a career Army officer who spent 12 years founding 2 businesses and 3 years as a corporate executive following his military service. The majority of Mark's career was spent in Northern Virginia, where he became an active member of the Prince William County community, served on the chamber board, engaged heavily in community leadership programs, and helped lead several small nonprofit organizations. Mark, you put my resume to shame, man. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Grand Strand welcome to Mr. Mark Schaber.
So having been here 10 days, I can't stake any claim into the great work that's been done over the last 6 months. You'll see some of it reflected here. What I'd like to do is just talk about this particular pillar a little bit and where we're placing some priority. I think what I also want to do is maybe give you some impressions from someone who is relatively new to the community. We are diverse in that I am a Yankee. We got some Southerners up here. So I come from Pennsylvania originally, but my military career has taken me all over the place. So it's a really tough question to answer when someone says, where are you from? So I just recently put a floor in my garage, and some of you are familiar with this epoxy that you can get, right? And as I'm reading the strategic plan while I'm moving into my new place, I start to read words like catalyst and accelerant, and we need a catalytic, energetic effort to do something. And so it kind of hit me when Peter, the guy who was helping me install this floor, started talking about the catalyst and the accelerant because it was raining. So you see this cardboard there because he was drying his feet before he would walk out with these spiky things on the bottom of his to try to get this floor in. So he was worried about the rain. And so he told me, you know, we're going to apply an accelerant. I asked him, I said, why don't you use the accelerant all the time? It takes 24 hours and maybe sometimes 48 hours before you can go in. He goes, well, we have to stock it. There's an expense associated with it. And you can do without it as long as there's not any kind of rush. You know? So it made a lot of sense to me. So I thought to myself, this makes a lot of sense as I read the strategic plan. Partnership Grand Strand, which is everyone in this room, staff, sponsors, everyone in this room is Partnership Grand Strand, and we are a catalyst and a change agent for what's happening in the community right now. That's what we're here for. Changing form, a chemical reaction happens due to the catalyst. And one of my jobs is to go out into the community and talk with business people that bring that prosperity to our region, and we want to spread that around, and we want to find accelerants out there. Accelerants are people that don't necessarily know what we're up to, that don't necessarily have the time to pull their head up from their business for a minute, but are worthy of their input into what's going on as a member of this business community. Okay, so in order to do that, underneath our first strategy, which is growing business retention and expansion efforts, just like it says on your sheet right there, is business engagement and data gathering. I want to go out, and we want to go out and talk to business owners, particularly business owners that are in an innovative area, particularly business owners that are in industries that are target industries that we'd like to bring to the region, but also don't want to negate or neglect the business, the heartbeat of what's happening in the Grand Strand right now. So as we talk to folks, we can inform them about what's going on within the community, within Partnership Grand Strand, and also gather data on hurdles that they have, reasons that they're here. I've already started to do this unofficially. My first official interview would be a sort of practice interview, starts tomorrow, and I hope to get to 150 businesses before the end of the year. I'm not taking that goal lightly. I don't think it's foolish. It's going to take a lot of work, a couple a day, give or take throughout the week, and we want to get that going. I'm looking for referrals. So if there are businesses that I ought to talk to, that you're aware of, help us by helping connect us with those businesses. We'll have a short interview, gather that data. I did meet Mr. Willis last night, Dia Willis, and he is already wanting to connect. So thank you very much for the connection. And then feedback is key. We talked a lot about communication here in the group, and feedback to that community that has engaged is huge. And so what I hope to do in 6 months from now, I believe we get back together again for a town hall. I hope to have the results of the interviews that we discussed to that point. We should have a pretty good, robust piece and give you some feedback. Next effort is to develop a business startup guide of sorts. There are a lot of resources out there, and you can find links and you can find information, and quite frankly, it comes a little bit overwhelming. I experienced it firsthand when I started 2 different government contracting companies. So you can imagine starting a business locally, you get a business license, you get your tax ID, and you start moving down that road. But in government contracting, some of you may be familiar, the bureaucracy and the administrativity associated with working with government contract is huge. I built my own GSA schedules, so I got into that minutia. And it's hard. It's not easy to navigate in that kind of a field. And some folks who are focused, the folks I talked to last night at the Emerge Center, I'll talk more about that, they're subject matter experts in their business. The key to success is that they really knew what they wanted to do. And one of their most challenging circumstances is trusting someone else to do some of the work because they knew that they could do it better themselves. And so they had to branch out. And the last thing they want to do is wade through this kind of business at minutia to try to get their idea going forward. So if we could help them with some guidance, tailor that to the local area, and support that. It also would then provide sort of a give back on day one. Hey, let me help you walk through this guy. Let me help you coach you through who you might want to connect with to solve that problem. And of course, this will be done in coordination with partners. Next strategy here is growing the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So partnering with entrepreneurs and small business incubators. So I'll highlight my experience last night, and I'll share with you that I spent a lot of time in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia is somewhat recession-proof due to all the government contracting that happens there. And it's kind of blissfully, we don't necessarily have to deal with some of the ebbs and flows because there is an economic engine running around Washington, D.C. There was a huge technology effort around Tyson's Corner and so on and so forth. And navigating that was sometimes hard because there were powerful people, there were people who didn't have time, there were decision makers, and breaking in to figure out how to get to know folks and make things happen was very difficult in that environment. I will tell you, I cannot believe how easy it is here to talk to people and gain access to sit with folks. Last night at the event, there was a CEO forum, and there were 3 CEOs, tech CEOs, innovators, entrepreneurs who spoke to the group, all right? And their enthusiasm for what's happening at the HTC Aspire Center and what's happening with eMERGE managing that from a technical perspective. They emphasize that other businesses are welcome, they have a tech focus, but the biggest hurdle that came away is they want more space like that. All right, more space to work, more space to collaborate, and more space to innovate. And interestingly enough, I stood up at the end and asked a question of the CEOs in the room. I said, twofold question. One, other than the beach and the lifestyle, what is the reason why you're in Myrtle Beach growing your business? And two, what's the biggest hurdle you might have that could be solved, like from a community perspective? And they answered the question, and by every single person, they basically sort of backed me down a little bit on the beach. They're here because of the lifestyle. Businesses are attracted to doing business here because of the beach, because of the activities, and so on and so forth. So oftentimes in my first 10 days, sort of, how do we branch out? How do we do something differently? Do we highlight the fact, do we need to downplay the tourist aspect of what we're doing? First impressions, the answer to the question is no. We have a huge asset right here in our backyard, in the community that we already exist, in the amenities that are already here. What can we do to add to that is first impression from a new guy, okay? We'll continue to do this. I came from a GBN meeting this morning. I met with Caroline of Chamber Academy the other day, so I'm getting to know people as we move forward and to build these relationships and work this partnering with entrepreneurs and small business incubators. I met Gary last night too, founder of the Grand Strand Angel Network. I think under some pressure, if I'm talking to him, he was kind of nudged in that direction. But he's enthusiastic about the Angel Network that he's helping develop. I'm sure there's others. He's recruiting folks. And so he and I are going to get together. We had a good chat last night at that same session. So the eMERGE is working. The incubator is working right here on the corner. And we need to make sure that that cornerstone of that whole arts and innovation project does not fall short of what our expectations are. I just put a couple notes up here, something I found about how different angel investors might be motivated to engage. And I think we have this in spades, we just need to take advantage of it. Opportunities for folks to invest and to be excited about the future and to help others follow in their footsteps. The angel investors that I've touched with over my time, they're mostly, they want to make money, they want to invest in things, but they also want to help other people be successful. And it was there in spades last night. And then long-term, growing business attraction efforts. I remember working with some of the economic development folks in Virginia, professionals that moved from city to city to basically manage their career for the next opportunity. They work economic development at a local level, at a city level, at a state level. And I got to be good friends with some of those folks. And they would refer to buffalo hunting, Northern Virginia had an opportunity, and there's a town called Haymarket. I don't know if you're familiar with Haymarket, Northern Virginia. Haymarket is a sea of mansions, okay? And there's some golf courses there, and a really great community with a little town center in Haymarket. Had a lot of good friends that I would visit out in Haymarket. We would go to Haymarket for one of our nonprofit board meetings. The Haymarket at one point was supposed to be a Disney theme park, okay? And there were certain members of the community courting Disney to come to Northern Virginia. Imagine, Disney World in Virginia, all right, in what was a hayfield at one time or another. Instead, there are houses there today. Now, I don't know which one's better, which one's worse, what was the best future of Northern Virginia, the Haymarket area. But buffalo hunting is a thing, and there are people that do that. All right, they go out and they find businesses who might be interested in relocating or building a manufacturing facility with X number of employees or X number of $1 million. And then right below those buffaloes, all the way down to day-to-day startups where somebody has a plumbing background, they want to start a plumbing company, there's sort of a little bit of a gap, and we want to go after those folks. Does that make sense to everybody? So what we want to do is we want to find those economic development professionals, including all the communities in the local region, and engage with political leadership on what we can do to attract business to this area that may not already have a resourced effort to go do that. This little article here is you see the South Carolina flag there, but that's an article written in 2021 that rated South Carolina the third best state for doing business, and right behind Georgia and Tennessee. So, you know, South Carolina already has made a name for itself for all kinds of reasons. And how can we work to roll the Grand Strand into that greater South Carolina picture? And I'll tell you, I've heard some pessimism in my short 10 days here about the enormity of what we're trying to do. I don't know that we have much choice. We have to try, we have to go after it. And I'm having trouble finding the reason for pessimism when I come from another community with many, many more resources and many more opportunities. They didn't have a beach, all right? They didn't have what we had, a tight community that's willing to work closely together, work hard. I don't see a reason for pessimism in what we're trying to accomplish. Just an 2 cents. Strategic partnerships, I would tell you, you know, I'm developing these partnerships. Peggy has worked hard. The team has worked hard to develop relationships. I'd be lying to you if I told you I have relationships in all these different organizations that we've touched over the last 6 months. But in 10 short days, I've really learned a lot. Like I said about working with GBN, I met the Fast Fest organization last night and got invited this morning to their working meeting next week. So that's going to take place. I already talked to you about Emerge in the Chamber Academy. Women in Technology is a focus effort by the South Carolina Technology Group. Lots of tech out there, and I think one of the takeaways from the conversations that I heard is regardless of what business you're in, technology can get involved in some way, shape, or form. And what we have is a unique opportunity here in our backyard for technology people that don't have to be in New York City, that don't have to be in LA to do business in those cities. They'd rather be in Myrtle Beach doing business in those cities, remotely building their technology businesses that in many cases are global customers, and you're living in Myrtle Beach, you know, to do it. So there's opportunity there abound. This Achieving Harmony piece, there are a lot of professionals, and they play an instrument of one sort or another. And when they play that instrument, even if they're just warming up, even if they're just messing around, it sounds beautiful because they're professional musicians. But if they all play at one time, warming up on the stage, as you're waiting in the wings for the concert to start, it doesn't sound very harmonious. So what we aspire to do here, again, finding accelerators, we also aspire to have people singing from that same sheet of music in terms of what we're trying to do as a community. And I think that's one of the biggest ways that we as Partnership Grand Strand can be that catalyst to moving forward. So just to try to leave you some thoughts, some anecdotes on first impressions. Thank you very much.
So that's a wrap, right? That's kind of where we've been over the last 6 months. And hopefully you can see what I was talking about early on when you hear from the folks that are leading these important pillars, how not only qualified, but how passionate they are about it. And to me, that makes all the difference. And I wanted you to hear from each of them because we want you to believe and understand in everything that we're doing for you, because we do look to you as the individuals that are actually making this work possible. So we've talked a lot about where we've been. I do have one more pillar to update just briefly, but we do have Jason Green with us, who we will include in our Q&A at the end, our kind of open conversation at the end for additional questions. But what I do want to say about our place pillar, which is the fourth one that you see on your strategic piece, is a couple things, just to be clear. When we think about Partnership Grand Strand and we think about our kind of guiding principles and what we do on a day in and day out basis, what you don't see in there is we are not a placemaking organization. That is not our skill set. That is not our strength. That placemaking, turning Myrtle Beach downtown into the vision of what the city knows it can be, and all of the hard work and the components that go into that are really part of the Myrtle Beach Downtown Alliance responsibility. So it's important to clarify, because I don't get a chance to really talk to all of you that often, to clarify the fact that our role is to support them. Our role is to advocate for them. Our role is to collaborate with them on a regular basis and identify opportunities where we can fuel Maybe it's awareness, maybe it's communication, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's another opportunity to convene some key stakeholders. But we don't have our, intentionally, don't have our fingers and whatnot in what Jason and his team are doing. But one of the big initiatives that we have partnered with the Downtown Alliance on is this revitalization, well, that's a lot of words to get tangled up on, but the revitalization of the Broadway area. And when we come up and open it up to questions, one of the questions I'd love for Jason to share with you, because he is the expert, is to just update you a little bit on how that's coming along, what's involved in that, because you're going to see some significant changes in that downtown area, specifically Broadway, that we're really excited about. And you should know that PGS has absolutely had a hand in that, but again, we are behind the scenes. Okay? So as we look ahead, I want to share with you some things that are coming down the pike that we're super excited about. First of all, we have one of the great advantages of being so close and so well integrated into the chamber that we have a team that are inside the chamber that are actually helping us build a new website. So in very short order, you're going to see a standalone website for Partnership Grand Strand. And what you should know about that that's exciting is that a lot of the information that you heard about in the presentations today, as well as some of the data dives and the blogs and the facts, if you will, that are driving some of our thinking, are all going to be housed in this new website. Full transparency, you'll have an opportunity to see the things that we're working on, and we encourage you to do so. There will also be it's intended to be a single source of information for folks across the Grand Strand. So what we want to do, for instance, in workforce, BJ is creating and assimilating all of the apprenticeships, internships, scholarship opportunities. We're going to be a single source of information for that for the Grand Strand. So if you've got information in that space, as we're building this website, please funnel it up to BJ. We're not going to do anything with it. We're going to just simply share that information and pass it on to individuals that are interested. But what we have found is that folks that are searching for scholarships or internships are bouncing all over the place. You know, there is not a single source of information, so we think PGS can play that role because it fits under that educate, inform, convene, all of the things that we said we wanted to do. And a whole lot of other fun things will be on the website, so you'll hear from us as we get that underway. We're also working on a cost of living comparison. Back to the conversation about the fact that affordable housing is a big issue here. We have convened some of the subject matter experts from the BJ subcommittee, and we are also working closely with Coastal Carolina University's analytics team. And in very short order, we're going to have a cost of living comparison for all to see that is going to not only look at our market, but also look at these sister markets around us to be able to basically say, is it really true that it's not affordable to live in Myrtle Beach? You know, how does Charleston compare? How does Columbia compare? How do some of these sister communities that are swiping talent from us? So it's an opportunity to, again, provide the data, the analytics that can guide future decision makings. Be Something Amazing is something we're super excited about, and this is an opportunity for healthcare. As you know, in our strategic directives, healthcare is one of the key areas that we wanted to focus on from a workforce perspective. And we are partnering with all 4 of the hospitals here in the Grand Strand area, and we are working collaboratively on building an education event for individuals at the high school level that actually think they might want to pursue a career in healthcare but don't really know what that looks like. And we had a meeting yesterday which was really quite interesting, because when you talk about convening and collaborating on things, initially we thought we were going to try to tackle all healthcare, all the way up to doctors and surgeons and this and that. But the experts that were on our panel as we were talking basically said the real opportunity lies in these folks that maybe don't have the opportunity to go for a 4-year degree. They're folks that are already living in this community that will likely stay here. Let's expose them to all of these let's call them skill-related roles that don't require a four-year degree, and we're going to tell them where they can go to get the education. We're going to connect them to HGTC, CCU, and any place else that we can do to make sure that these young adults recognize they can be amazing, and they can be amazing right here in the Grand Strand. So that's a pilot that we're working on, and based on our learning from that, we're going to take that same model and we're going to take it over to skilled or trade employment. And basically, we are going to pull together subject matter experts, so if you're interested, please raise your hand. But we'll be pulling together a team to actually structure an event for those high schoolers, again, that really need to be exposed to how great a trade career can be. Some of them have no idea, and they feel like, if I don't go to college, I'm not succeeding. And we want to change that paradigm. We want to be able to inform these kids that there is an amazing life to be had in that skills trade. So we'll be looking for volunteers to be part of that planning committee. Also looking forward, we have heard from our young professionals and from our CCU students that they want more information. They want to be connected. They want to find out what's happening. And these folks are absolutely the ripple effect that we need. In other words, they have a strong circle of influence, and they will talk to other young people, and the word will get out. So we're creating a program called an Insiders Event Series. It's a education and networking opportunity, but it has another wrinkle to it, which is actually providing them access to some information that they may not normally have received, courtesy of PGS. So for instance, one of our first ones that we're doing is these young professionals in the focus group told us, I want to know more about what's going on downtown. I want to know what the vision is. I want to know what I can start telling my friends about and when we can come downtown safely. And they want to be in the know. So Jason and his team have collaborated with us to execute an event at the end of this month where we're going to be bringing those young professionals into the Emerge Center. Many of them have not been there. And then they're going to hear a few minutes about what's happening downtown from Jason and his team, and then they're going to get an opportunity to network. Our plan is to replicate this under a workforce forum. We are working with CCU to create a similar event using DC Blocks and their team, and then we are going to be working on some small business opportunities as well. But our hope is it's not about doing it on some kind of published schedule. It's about finding the right partner that everybody's interested in and then creating the event. So you'll hear more about the Insiders event moving forward. Workforce Forum is another project that we're working on. This is going to be an opportunity we hope that you'll attend, but this is a forum of keynote presenters, if you will, that are going to be talking specifically about the Grand Strand workforce, and the team that's been building this program have decided to focus on the whole notion of connecting employers to employees, to be talking about when do you talk to Horry County Schools, how do you reach HGTC, the things that we've heard from all of you from an employment standpoint that is somewhat fuzzy at best. Come to this workforce forum. We're going to have the right people there. We're going to connect you to and tell you exactly the steps to take. We're also getting ready to launch a community survey that you'll hear more about. This is really just more information gathering. That's very preliminary right now, so we'll talk more about that at a future time. And then we're really excited, BJ mentioned this a little bit, but there's a program at Coastal Carolina that's managed by them called RISE, which is essentially a internship program that the university manages. So that kind of burden of being able to figure out how all the back shop happens with an internship is now able to be delegated, if you will, to the Coastal Carolina team. And they've been achieving a lot of success in the Georgetown community. They have a partnership over there, and this internship has awarded 45 internships pretty consistently over the last, 3 to 5 years, I think?
Yes, ma'am.
So they want to bring it, we want them to bring it to Horry County. So we are building the structure with them of what that's going to look like. We definitely would want you to certainly stay close to us as that, if you have internships that you want to make available, we would love to plug you into this program. And there are many cost advantages for the employer. I will tell you that much. We're working through the details right now, but this is an internship. If you've got a need for folks that are young and you're willing to spend a little time developing them in an internship, this is for you. You want to get your company lined up to be part of this, and as we roll this forward, we'll definitely make sure that we keep that information flowing. So that is the end of our formal presentation for episode 1. The next time we meet, we will have information on the hurricane study that you heard about. We're going to have more information on the cost of living analysis for you. We're going to have some great recaps from the small business teams, that some of the events that we've sponsored, some of the entrepreneurial pieces that we definitely will be able to get some learning from and cascade back to you. But I hope that you can see that we've been busy, and we thank you for your time and attention today. We would love to just kind of collect your questions. Mary Ann has got an opportunity to pick up if you have any questions. But the 4 of us, as well as Karen and Clay, and Jason, if you wouldn't mind joining us up here, we'd like to just throw it open to questions for the last few minutes that we have here. We've given you a pretty steady flow of a kind of drinking from the fire hose of information, but perhaps it spurred some thinking, or you have a question about something. And Jason, if you want to kick us off, I'd love to have you kind of share with us a little bit about what's going on with the Broadway revitalization. If you could come up and share that for starters, and then any questions you have for any of us or the board, please let us know. Jason Green, Myrtle Beach Downtown Alliance.
I don't know if I'm a podium guy or if I'm a walk around guy, but I think I do both, actually. It depends on where I am, I guess. But I'll take the podium today. I started about 9 weeks ago with the Grand Strand, with the Downtown Alliance, and we went right into strategic planning within week 3 of my starting. And the reason we did that is that we realized that we're going to have to be very bold and aggressive with what we do relative to redeveloping downtown. And but what we didn't know is what process we needed to go through to actually do that. So part of our strategic planning process that we've been going through is really diving deep into really the character of downtown today and kind of what the vision of that's going to be. So we spent the better part of the last 7 weeks really sifting through a lot of data, really sifting through a lot of components around that to really understand like what we should and shouldn't do, understanding what our partners are already doing, making sure that we truly understand the direction that everyone's going in, and then trying to develop an alignment around that so that we're all heading in the right direction. That's really been the crux of what we've done the last 7 weeks. I'm proud to announce that we'll be actually presenting the first draft of our strategic plan to our strategic planning committee next Wednesday at our next planning committee meeting. And we'll do 2 drafts before we present it to our board of directors at the end of August. But relative to the Broadway Streetscape project, as we kind of have sifted through the strategic plan, what we realize is that there's a natural progression of what we need to be able to do to actually deliver what we need to see in what I'm assuming is about a 20-year project, and maybe a little bit longer than that. We need to be able to show today what our future is going to look like. So the future glimpse is kind of this term I've been using as a way of describing what we're going to do today to show you what the future of downtown Myrtle Beach is going to look like. The Broadway Streetscape project that Peggy mentioned is one of those future glimpse projects. We're going to do some beautification on Broadway Street, and Partnership Grand Strand has been gracious enough to afford us some funding that will allow us to do a lot of these particular elements. So you might see some painted crosswalks, you'll see some banners, some new light poles, some improvements to the roads themselves, some unique parking, which we've gotten some great public input on some reverse angle parking, allowing us to have some bike lanes as well on Broadway Street, which is really kind of the first future glimpse of what the downtown area collectively could look like over time. I think we will see that in future years and future projects as we continue to go along to find these little small areas as part of our overall phasing strategy to develop or redevelop downtown, where you'll start to see these smaller projects pop up, really to kind of help identify place in downtown, which is going to be a really important part of our mission as the Myrtle Beach Downtown Alliance to really say, you've entered into a different place by just virtue of driving, by going to our website, starting to see these future glimpses that will start to pop up here and there over time while the bigger projects are underway. And you'll start to see those unfold over time. So these future glimpses may be temporary in some cases, they may be permanent in some cases, they may be replaced with something that is going to be the more permanent structure that you're going to see over time. But the idea is that when you're walking through downtown, you'll know that one, you're in a different place, and second, that you're going to be seeing glimpses of the future along the way.
Awesome.
Do you want me to stay
So,
here?
question, yeah, you can stay, for sure,
Okay.
absolutely. We don't have a chair for you, you'll have to stand, but yeah.
That's fine, that's fine.
Any questions, anything that's kind of rolling around in your mind that our team can answer? Maybe it's an idea, maybe it's something that you feel like we missed, or something that you'd like to see us kind of roll into our strategic thinking? Let us know. Now, we couldn't have had all the answers. Yes, ma'am.
We've heard a lot about I-73 and the counties liking it, not liking it, liking it, not liking it, but has there ever been any conversation, and there probably hasn't, I just have missed it, with Highway 22 connecting into the 95-20 corridor? I mean, is that a more economic option, or is it just because only South Carolina would be paying for that?
I'll have to defer that to my policy
I
team.
figured
appreciate that.
the
No, I do.
policy guy would be the one for this.
So I can't say I specifically focused on that project. I'm happy to look into that for you though, but no, I can't really speak it out once and give you any false information on that.
No, Wayne might know the answer. Are you still here, Wayne?
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are.
I didn't quite understand your question.
Just whether there's been any conversation about 22, which is built to interstate specs, becoming an interstate corridor connecting into 20 or into 95.
Well, I just see the corridor of 73 is roughly a 38-mile stretch from 22 to 95. Basically, the Lata intersection coming in between 701 and 319. It's not completely identified. It's a red line on a map, but it's within it. That's probably a $2.5 billion road project. It has been permitted by the Federal Department of Transportation. That permit lasts 25 years. There is no money to build it. There's no local matching money to build it, which is a significant part of whether or not you're going to get state or federal funding to build that road. There's been a lot of conversation about just expanding 501 and parts of 501 that connect to 95 today, and I just think that the traffic engineers and the experts that expand roads or build new roads in this whole exercise have determined that a new 38-mile corridor is the most likely and best option to build interstate access to 95. 22 today is that South Carolina 22 is not built to interstate standards. A part of that effort would be expanding and making improvements to 22, widening the roadbed, for instance, that doesn't meet interstate standards. And then I'll just point out that in this recent General Assembly budget, there was $30 million allocated from the General Assembly to Horry County to raise 22 in and where it flooded in its intersection of Highway 90 near the Walkmall River tributaries. There have been no engineering studies as to whether or not that's absolutely something that's necessary, but that will probably be step one. But it's great that certainly that allocation is made. That's a lot of information. I don't know if that really answers your question here, Joe.
I would just build on that, I think the one way that the Chamber's been thinking about it is that 22 is the future home. It would be converted if, again, this first $30 million that Wayne just mentioned is used to do the engineering study and then to start to do the widening and do the appropriate things that would make it, quote unquote, interstate quality and worthy, then someday you would be driving on what you now think of as 22, and it would simply have a different road sign that would say you're on Interstate 73, or whatever it ends up being, right? So I think that 22 and the existing roads are the path to our future, right? Getting them improved, getting them there, but that's always been the vision, is that whatever you want to call it, I-73, 22, it terminates in Myrtle Beach, and that's the end of what James was showing. There's a long saga that goes all the way to the Canadian border. And you go South Carolina, up into North Carolina, West Virginia, Virginia, Michigan, Ohio. You literally we would have a path. Some states would call it 73, some call it 74, a few call it 75. You would literally have a path that would take you all the way down, and it would terminate here in South Carolina in Grand Strand.
We don't have the money to build it, but we do have the permit, and we've also got the right of way purchased, I believe, that's not.
Not all.
Not all of it.
Not a lot.
Big chunk of it.
Right, but a big
A
chunk.
large portion of it is.
Right.
I'd like to say one thing here, that our regional transportation issues shouldn't all be in one basket. There are a lot of options out there that need to be worked on. The one that Wayne mentioned is a pretty good one. You know, we've got the road that comes in from Dennisville, it's been widened all the way. It really connects to 501 just on the other side of Marion, and upgrading that in the meantime, whether you do one first or the other first, just getting people able to move faster through Amer and Gallows Ferry is what we're about. Right?
Absolutely.
And if you can, we should be looking at doing both of those. It's not an either or for us. It's Highway 9, it's
90.
90, 544, it's everything that needs to be picked up coming in from Columbia because of our growth. Every single opportunity ought to be explored and put on the table in terms of which ones can we afford to do now, how much money can we garner support for this one. It's not going to do what I-73 would do going from its connection point over near Dillon right to almost where the last overpass is for 22. That road would really be fast and most efficient, but we do have some other things we can kind of polish up and make better.
Thank you, Clay, because the travel from here to 95 is the hard part. Going west, or going southwest, going up to Dillon. Deal with.
You have some questions?
Yeah, well, there's one in the basket, so we'll see who that just refers to. How can I get involved with attracting local talent to my business?
I guess that's me.
That's it.
So yeah, I mean, it's really just kind of getting your head out of your business. We made the comment earlier, we may be so focused on our day-to-day activities of our business where there's opportunities to really invest in the school systems as well. So whether that be welcoming some kids in to take a tour, whether that may be going to be a guest speaker, all the educational institutions are open to us participating in their schools. So that's really the easiest way to quickly get involved, is to start getting your name in those schools and start building relationships with those students, so when they get time to seek employment, that you're going to be their first choice, you're going to be top of mind. So we can definitely create those opportunities for you guys to be involved and be engaged and continue to build that pipeline for our students.
And I'll just add to that BJ is getting ready to launch, PGS is a industry awareness program, which is really addressing some of the feedback that we've gotten from the students, in that they want access to all of you. They want the ability to be able to talk to employers, to integrate themselves, immerse into some type of networking or some type of opportunity to connect. So this industry awareness piece, there will be individuals that will be matched up with the, what's the proper term, BJ, within the high schools?
So they're CTE programs. So basically you'll have an opportunity to go into high schools that may relate to your career or what your organization does, and see if those high schools match that career path. So I'll use the example since Ricky's right in front of me. Sockasty High School has a building construction program. It would be only natural for Ricky in his business to go and explore Sockasty High School and learn more about that building construction program for them to be able to seek talent. B540 St. James has a sewing and design program there. So again, great natural opportunity for them to learn about what avenues are already there. I think that we sometimes get caught in the ability of we need to have students who are trained in higher education, and we may not have to do that. The high schools are putting students out in certified positions, or they have certified credentials when they graduate, and they have the skills to actually be workforce ready. So we just need to make sure that our employers have the opportunity to be exposed to those students.
Yeah, so if you're interested in being part of the industry awareness, it's a kind of a jigsaw puzzle, if you will, because BJ's matching employers to these areas of study that are in each of the high schools. But if you have an interest, that's one way to get connected. I would say all of our investors are going to be invited to these insiders events as they become available. That's all a slew of young professionals that will be there, and as you know and are made aware of them, just RSVP and come. I mean, interact with these kids. We are also going to be looking for opportunities to get employers in the classroom. We have not secured a clear kind of next step as it relates to that, but we have agreement to do it. So we need to figure out who wants to go into the classroom and who wants to educate these young kids, whether they're high school or collegiate level, about your profession. And we are going to be the facilitators for that as we move forward. So this notion of getting you to them, bringing you into the classroom, and then also the things that BJ spoke about in terms of look at recruiting a little differently. These students are not responding in the same way, shape, and form that they responded 10 years ago. It is a different mindset, it is a different generation. They need to be communicated to differently, and they respond differently. So we need to evolve with that because we can't fix it. I mean, we just need to, figure out how we deal with it.
Let me just add to that. Last night, I had my shiny new business cards, I had my jacket on, ready to rock and roll, and of course, I walk into the eMERGE Center, everybody's in shorts drinking beer, and three people refused to take my card. I don't do business cards. So you on LinkedIn, and before the end of the meeting, I was connected and had an invitation to an event, okay, based off just showing up and being there. Now, these younger folks, showing my age here a little bit, they're folks that grew up in the 90s. Some of them are millionaires in their 30s already. They've done this on their own. They do business a different way. They interact a different way. They network and they communicate a different way. And I think one of our challenges here is to help figure out how to better communicate with the talent base that we have right here in our own backyard as individual businesses, but as a community too. A lot of them do want to be here. We just got to give them that pathway, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
Point of information, the Economic Development Corps started an industry awareness class with 25 people last year, and they were taking applications this year, so if you could coordinate with them. But there's much more industry outside of tourism than you would think in this county.
That's right, and actually, we have partnered with them. BJ's going to be in the next class to get exposed to that, and what the Economic Development Team's industry awareness is getting employers, any really individual that's interested, exposed to all of the industry that's around here. So it's an opportunity to build and educate yourself should you choose to pursue their industry awareness program. Ours happens to have the same name, but we're talking about getting you into the schools under the same guidelines. But it is about, we can't move forward without really understanding what we've already got. And that's been the drink from the fire hose that we've all had, because you're absolutely right, there's so much here. And I would say probably maybe 50% or better, and if you add all of the folks that have newly moved to this area, it might even be higher, they don't know. And they may have young children in the household that will eventually need to know, and they want to keep those kids close to home. So we have a job to do here. But great question. Any others?
Anybody else?
So there is an evaluation form also in front of you. We would love to hear your feedback. Sometimes it's easier to just jot your thoughts down on a piece of paper and just leave them at the front or the back. Where do you want the forms to go?
I can take them out as we leave out the back.
Yeah, we'd love to know kind of, do do you feel like we're on the right track? Do you think, you know, the work that we've been doing is exactly what you would have hoped we would be doing when you stepped up to invest? Because, you know, Partnership Grand Strand started out as a 5-year initiative, and I think we all know that this is not something that's going to begin and end in 5 years. This is an ongoing commitment, both from the community and from us, as well as the chamber. And we can't continue to move forward and create this linkage for everybody without the community support. And you may have a friend, a colleague, another business that you may want to connect us with that might want to be part of this work, because we are writing the next chapter. We are writing the story of the Grand Strand, and together, I think it can be quite powerful. So we're going to give you back a little bit of time. It looks like we got finished up a little early, and the next time we meet, we'll be doing episode 2 or episode 3, I guess, of our story, and we'll update you on the things that we spoke of today. So thank you so very much for coming and for your support.